Gotta think of a good one.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, it's just, it wasn't there. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, on the main stage, we have an upcoming band coming to you live from downtown Cleveland. It's Mage Against the Machine. Da, 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 da. Game read through with friend Lex Mandrake in the top right corner. Hi, everybody. Jordan here. The PH is silent. I am here with my good friend Lex Mandrake. Lex, who writes many a things in his life, plays Hero Quest, and also has dinosaurs behind him. And a skull. May or may not be real. We don't know. And today we're going to talk about little indie games that we find on Twitch that we really like. This one is one that I have discovered that I thought was quite interesting, called Mage Against the Machine. Lex, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't want to lie to you. I bought this on title only. Like, I was like, I have to get this because the title was that good.
Anyone would. I can't blame you.
And so if you feel the same way, you should also go and buy Mage Against the Machine. This is a pretty, it's an RPG, but I think it's really more of like a solo, not solo, I should say. Solo as in like you're going to play it once. Single play, maybe a couple times. There's not really a leveling mechanic, but it's really a storytelling game.
Yeah, it feels like an adventure with a rule system built into it.
Yes.
Instead of the other way around.
Yeah. And so Mage Against the Machine is you are a time-traveling wizard, and you're trying to stop the robot apocalypse. That is the entire premise of the game. And you do that by everyone at the table is one of these time-traveling wizards. It is a game master-less system, so there's no game master. Everyone kind of contributes and makes it work. And everybody's going to create a memory around the robot apocalypse, something that happened early, something that happened late, something that happened in the middle. And then collectively, you all kind of piece these together to form a timeline. And then you jump back in time to try and thwart it. And so if I come up with the memory of, well, the robot apocalypse all started when man was brought fire from Prometheus from atop of the mountain. And you're like, we're going back way far for that. And you're like, I know. Then I would technically be the one that's in charge of that memory. So everyone who goes back in time is going to ask me questions like, well, what is going on here? What's that? And so the player's goal in that memory is to thwart the robot apocalypse in some way. It's very, very simple. This is only a 6-page PDF. And things I want to highlight about it, I guess. Well, I'll finish talking. So you roll a d6, that's it, to kind of see if you succeed or lose. And then there are some other interesting little aspects, and I believe they're called anomalies that can come into play. Lex, what did you think of Mage Against the Machine? Not that I'm jumping to the end, but I guess your initial thoughts, like what stands out to you?
The art stands out to me in it.
It is very fun.
It's really,
the cover
really
is
fun.
great.
the cover is awesome. All the interior art, like it's only 6 pages, so there isn't like a ton of art in it, but all the interior art that shows up is really fun and really perfect for, the fact that this is a very specific like genre / adventure thing. It supports that super well. Mm-hmm. I think that I like it, and I like that you can play it standalone. Mm-hmm. I still kind of wish this was just an adventure, right? For a different rule system. But I guess you could make it into one if you wanted. So yeah, other things about this game that I thought were interesting. I think it's cool that it's, in terms of the system that's built in here, right? It's just a D6. I like that. But then it's like, hey, what if we had like 2d6? Because then we could do a bell curve, and you could like do more interesting things with the math, right? And have like different kinds of probability, or like introduce more ideas of like bonuses or what have you. I understand it's supposed to stay simple. That's fair. I get it. I'm not
agree.
That, but I feel like there is more room to do something like that in here.
Very much so.
Even within 6 pages, right?
I get a very Monsters of the Apocalypse vibe, or Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yes.
And specifically, I was thinking of, well, let me back up. I have never had an RPG utilize time travel well. And it is something I want to tell a time travel story, but I've never really been able to do it very well. And then this came out and I'm like, you're a time traveling wizard. And I'm like, that sounds cool. And so I got very excited for this. But I do agree, because the more I read this, instead of the very simple, it's a D6 is exactly like, and 5 to 6. Well, I'll go over here. I'll roll over to it. So I talked about these memories that you create. And then when you go through it, once you are at the point of whether you succeed or fail, which isn't really described other than you're at a point where you need to roll to stop the memory, or they put it in the PDF as, how are you going to stop the event? You roll a d6. 5 to 6, you succeed. 3 to 4, it isn't resolved, so it's still kind of in a limbo. And 1 to 2, it gets worse. So you've like doubled down on Prometheus bringing fire down, and now everybody's got nanotechnology fire, and it's awful. A 2d6 system would let you have a lot more subtle influence, and Powered by the Apocalypse does that really well, where you get like a super success and things like that. And I keep thinking about using Powered by the Apocalypse in place of that, but with this memory system for a time travel. So it's like, if we collectively are playing a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and I say, this is the event that you guys are currently in, you have a way of preventing it, and then tell the players what are the key moments that you want to go back and stop. Have them go back, have them have a funny boss battle, and then ultimately it will come down to this roll, and then they can go back or something. Yeah, I don't know. I think this handles time travel better than a lot of other, or any other game, I guess, that I've really read, because I've always wanted to do a time travel kind of story, and I feel like this is a good way of doing it. But.
Well, yeah, totally, because it ties it to memories, right? And a lot of other games don't think to do that. And I think that's like super smart, because then you can be like, you can play around with the whole idea of imperfect memory and how that like things didn't happen exactly as you thought they did and stuff. That's really fun. But then they introduce the ideas of like, oh, this did happen, but it happened in a different timeline, or like all sorts of goofy things like that, which is cool. And if you're going for a game that's very story based, that also is putting the control in the player's hands in terms of narrative.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can say, this was my memory, so this was what I remember and how it happened. And yeah, very smart, very elegant. I really like that idea a lot from a sort of gameplay and mechanics standpoint in this. Yeah, like you said, and like I said earlier, I just wish there was a little more of a curve, so it wasn't just as likely to have any of the 3 kinds of outcomes.
Yeah. And another interesting kind of, I mean, it's a story-based game, so the magic, because you're all wizards, whenever you're using magic to bend reality, it's an adjective. So you're going to take an adjective that fits the spell or the effect that you want to do, and you'll get a +1 to your roll, which I thought was kind of cool. And so, again, they're trying to keep it very simple, but you could also translate that to another system of like, oh, I succeeded against the boss, I get a +1 on this d6, or maybe a +1 on the 2d6 that we were talking about changing. So I kind of like that. Like the effects that I do in the memory can augment the final roll to see if we're ultimately successful here. But once you use an adjective, you can't use it anymore. So that's the spell slot effect. And I thought that was a lot of fun. And it says if you use is it a synonym that of a previously used adjective, then you generate an anomaly. And so you have to keep these anomalies kind of tracked, because anomalies will come into play at the end of the session to see if the robot apocalypse was avoided. Anomalies are another currency that other players can use. So it's kind of like if we're in Lex's memory and we're trying to thwart the robot apocalypse with whatever memory he has, and I don't know, Toucan Sam over there is coming up and he's like, I want to do this because I think it's interesting. And again, you're not trying to like dick over your other players, but what you are trying to do is create, how do I make the game as interesting as possible? You can use an anomaly to add something extra to the scene. And then you just say like, oh, that was because of this other anomaly that happened earlier, or maybe something from an earlier thing. And in my mind, that could be as easy as like, or as something simple like you forgot to flip the last switch, so you left the power on for the machine. Or it could be like a duck falls from heaven, or like, I don't know, like, or a tentacle jumps in. Like, you could do big ones. This feels like a game that's meant for a bunch of game masters who like want to play a game together where they can just tell a big story and it can be really funny. I don't know. I was just really tickled with this. I thought it was kind of cool. So at the very end, once you've gone through everybody's memories, you get back to the present. You have to see if you've succeeded. You're going to roll a number of dice equal to the number of anomalies generated during a memory, plus unspent anomalies. And then it says use the lowest die to determine the result. So I think you don't want to generate anomalies because you're going to... This is the one part I was kind of confused on, was the resolution. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like, you don't want to generate anomalies because if you're rolling more dice, you have more chances of getting a really bad roll, and then you have to use that roll. So you want to roll fewer dice so you have better chances of, or you don't have as good a chance. Or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's it's disadvantaged for D6s in a way.
Yes.
You're going to take the lowest result. Mm-hmm. But I think I liked the idea of the anomalies so much that when I was reading this, I was like, oh, and you'd have anomalies like all over the place, and how cool would this be to do all of this? But it's the idea that if I'm using magic to succeed in the past, those anomalies are going to haunt me in the future. And so that is, once I kind of got through that, I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. It just seemed really excessive to say, well, you're going to do a number of the anomalies generated and any unspent anomalies. And so it's like, well, I'm doing like 12d6 here. You're going to get a 1 and fail. But the goal is not to do that, obviously. So in my mind, I want a way of counteracting that somehow. Like maybe through a self-sacrifice, like maybe somebody has, if I stay back in the past affect this, then I'll have like a plus whatever to your roll at the very end, to see if you succeed. I want something like some kind of mechanic like that. And also I want to point out with this, there are, along with the PDF, are a bunch of cards. And I don't know if you got the cards, Lex.
Oh, I didn't look at them.
But the cards are a bunch, what is it? I want to read it. It's a bunch of events, memories, and feelings. So with events, and I think these cards, the idea is you print it off and it's kind of a way to get inspired for writer's block when you're playing the game. Like, I don't know. And so you hand a card to a player and say, this event was associated with a specific group of hackers. Who are the hackers? And you're like, oh, and so now you can kind of go off of it. This event caused the entire city to black out. Why? And so these could also be used as a springboard, or also what if anomalies caused extra things to fly into the game? Like, I like the idea of a deck of many things kind of thing, only you're using it with these cards.
So you know what this game reminds me of? Another video we did, which was the Final Girl game, right? Or it's another game where it feels like it's very much for theater kids.
Yeah.
It's got a very specific premise, and it's kind of like, okay, here's a goofy premise, do role play with it, and just like make up stuff. And here's some and the cards, especially because they're giving you like keywords and things that'll spark your imagination for stuff. And I think that's great. And I think those kind of games are really fun and have their place in gaming. Especially if you have a bunch of people who are not used to RPGs. You can be like, hey guys, the only die we're rolling is this D6. We got some cards that are going to help fire our imagination for ideas in case anybody gets stuck. And this is what we're doing because it's baked into the game. And I think that's very, very good for that kind of audience.
So I definitely recommend this. I think you would like this if you're like me, I guess, and you're a, I don't know, nerdy theater kid that wants to like impress your other theater kid friends with this weird RPG. But also from I want to adapt this idea into another system to do a time travel game. I think that's what I'm getting from it the most. I just keep thinking about using this in funny and interesting ways with, even D&D 5e, but with DCC or the Old School Essentials, or this would work really well with Kids on Bikes, to do a time travel thing with Kids on Bikes, because that whole game is about creating memories and a community together. And so you could create a whole community and then augment that with, well, what happened when you were 6? And like, oh, well, now we'll go back in time and we'll take care of what happened when I was 6 and stuff. So it says I purchased it for $5 80 days ago, but I'm not sure. Oh, it's name your own price. So this is another, you can get it for free. Drop some money though if you want to, because it's pretty cool.
When did this game come out? Did you say that earlier in the video?
I did not. I should.
Do we know what year this game was published? Because
I don't.
It would be really funny if it came out right before the Powered by the Apocalypse games got popular, because it does feel like it wants to be a Powered by the Apocalypse game, but it just like didn't think to do that. But I don't know.
Well, okay, so I always get confused because it was published on itch March 5th of 2020.
Oh, okay, that's pretty recent.
But I don't know if it was somewhere else.
Whatever.
But it looks about 2 years
cool.
ago. All these comments and stuff are 2 years ago. So the author is Jordan Palmer. No relation. But yeah. Because all Jordan people are the same. I don't know if you know
It would be
that.
funny if it was Jordan Palmer, different last name than you, but there was a PH in the Jordan. So it's like, oh, well, that means we're related.
Yeah, that means we're related.
Yikes. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for watching this episode of Games with Lex.
Games with Lex in the top right corner.
Yeah, indie games you should check out for
Check 'em out.
all different kinds of games.
This one's free.